Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story plus a bunch of big finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. It is before we begin, because in 2019, YouTube was caught data mining the information of children, therefore filing the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA. They reached a settlement with the United States government where they implemented new policies meant to dodge responsibility and scapegoat creators, meaning I have to ensure everyone understands that this video is not meant for children, it is not marketed towards kids, it is not advertised towards kids. Doctor Who is a family show that kids can watch. But this video, as with all the videos on my channel, are looking at it from an adult perspective, so viewer discretion is advised. That being said, it is the 29th of March 2021, and we are starting a look at the first in a trilogy of Lost Stories produced for the third series of the Lost Stories range, starting with The Guardians of Prophecy by Johnny Byrne and adapted by Jonathan Morris. Now, unlike the last Lost Stories, the last bunch of Lost Stories we've been looking at, this trilogy doesn't actually have nearly as much interesting stories behind them. They were all either at one point considered for season 22 or 23. This one was season 22. And, well, I think, and they were all essentially, they were never actually left in completed scripts. Heck, two of them, including this one, were only left in storylines. But Johnny Byrne was essentially asked to work on a sequel for Keeper of Traken soon after he wrote Warriors of the Deep. And, well, this is actually one of those stories where script editor Eric Sayward didn't particularly like Byrne, so essentially got him out of there, and Byrne essentially lost the job. So, there's that bit of drama, which is kind of a shame. Part 1 of the Guardians of Prophecy, as essentially adapted by Jonathan Morris, is really good. It's one of those stories where you don't exactly see everything, you don't see a lot of stuff being perfect or anything, but you do see enough that, well, you can't help but question what might go on. It's just a different sort of story. And because of that, you actually, I will say each of the episodes are a half hour in length. So, instead of say doing a full 45 minutes, this is just a half hour. Now, the one minor flaw here is that the Doctor and Perry don't actually get involved until well over the halfway point. But Byrne's script is actually interesting enough that it kind of does hold the attention fairly well. It's one where it's a script where we basically get a lot of intrigue, a lot of interest, all essentially about what might be going on. It's not necessarily the absolute highlight of the story, but the intrigue there's intrigue enough there that you really get the feeling that there is something interesting going on beneath the surface. You have a lot of political intrigue on the planet Serenity, which is the only surviving planet of the Traken Union. And as the only surviving planet of the Traken Union, you essentially have a planet that has to be dedicated to basically Traken's ideals. It's you have plenty of intrigue there. A lot of this being political drama. You have a character. You have you have a character called you have a really a good cast here, a good supporting cast. There's you have this character called Ebco, played by Graham Cole, who was who was and you have essentially sort of setting himself up to be the villain. You have a character played also. You have a finding himself in a position. There was he claims to have his conscience, his he has these weird claims where he essentially was a criminal, but is essentially reformed in a way that he's actually allowed out and not treated as a criminal, which makes for an interesting character, because it's one of those character beats where you have a lot of interesting little suggestions, interesting little things here and there, where the Doctor is placed at the the Doctor and Perry are dragged in by a Melker, and you have something interesting, is that this is an entire episode written based on 17 pages of notes. The entire story comes from 17 pages of notes. So you have that there. So you have Jonathan Morris getting a lot of fun. And of course this first episode ends with the Doctor being shot, which is, always a great cliffhanger. The Doctor and Perry getting involved and going under a miscommunication. There is, something, there's something so different. There's something just so different about what this story does. And, I enjoy a lot of it. It is really a great episode. And it really starts everything off interesting. We're playing with the Traken Union. Johnny Byrne's ideas always shine through, even if his scripts aren't the best, and Jonathan Morris does help make this script just sparkle. So I'm going to have to give part 1 of The Guardians of Prophecy a 9 out of 10. Alright, it is the 30th of March 2021. I just finished listening to part 2 of The Guardians of Prophecy, and this is actually kind of a perfect episode. Jonathan Morris always does such a good job in making his scripts feel, in a way, feel real, and feel like there is, something different and something interesting there. I say that because this episode is a really interesting one. it pulls off a mid-story switch right at the end here that, are basically someone who we think has been a good guy, played by Nigel Lambert, or has been at least ambivalent, not necessarily good. He's shown bits of villainy, but it's never like, oh, this is definitely a villain who is going to be, evil. Instead, it's more of, okay, we don't quite know his allegiance. Now you know, and you know that he's villainous, which is, I think, great. It's a wonderful sort of it's a wonderful sort of story where you get you get the you get sort of this big twist, which is played off very much like a twist, and like something very much doing doing something so very different, where you have our intrigue, our story, building up to this aspect of it where you have the intrigue, it's it plays off so differently, and you have something there where you don't expect, like, Prophecy to be an actual character. Prophecy is a computer and is a character, and again, the second episode cliffhanger is very similar to the first episode cliffhanger, which is fine. That's fine, and it's actually really good. It really works to have the cliffhanger be that different, be the different thing, instead of having a second episode cliffhanger, as what as sort of what this story might be. It's a very different kind of story where you don't see what what the story could be doing, but it builds up to sort of the reveal of a even bigger villain, Malador, played by Stephen Thorne, who's absolutely brilliant. Also, Simon Williams is in this, and so obviously you have Graham Cole being excellent, but but the real interesting stuff here is essentially that there's already, there's already, there's everything, there's, it's this, it's this, it's this very, it's this very different type of story that I think works simply on the merit of telling a great yarn and sort of revisiting ideas that simply made Keeper of Traken work. This is definitely riffing off of Traken, though doing it in perhaps a different way. It's the very, very different, just sort of thing that I think it, I think it works well. It works well as really, really well as a story. And of course, Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant are brilliant together. They are, always fun to listen to. So I'm just going to have to give part 2 of The Guardians of Prophecy a 10 out of 10. Alright, it is the 7th of April 2021. I missed several days. I apologize for that. I fell ill, and then just life just kicked me while I was down. But I just finished listening to part 3 of The Guardians of Prophecy. An excellent episode. Really, this is as we move into the back half of the story, this is where we can be introduced to Malador as played by the wonderful Stephen Thorne. Now, Stephen Thorne, of course, played 3 roles in the classic series. He was Azal in The Demons, Omega in The Three Doctors, and then the male Eldrad in The Hand of Fear. And of course, it's a story where you get a lot of things going on and happening, all in essentially this little what is essentially what's essentially our crazy full story where where prophecy is destroyed, and sort of the last you get sort of this big feeling that the last things that are sort of keeping prophecy together and keeping the last bits of the Traken Union together are essentially falling apart. It's a different little, it is a different sort of story because of that, where you get you get you get the characters getting to have their interaction, and you really have sort of, this is the ancient evil of Malador being unleashed, and that aspect of the story coming across really well. This is, doing a story with an ancient evil is always difficult. Simply, simply because of, of what a story can actually do. And you have sort of things build up to this idea that the entire labyrinth has actually just been part of the power of Serenity. So as we build up to essentially all the Melkur reawakening as true Melkur, and not like whereas where there's an entire this where this entire story is basically taking place to have the to have everything be sort of this different this sort of different sort of idea. It's a very very different it's a very very different sort of story where you don't get to see everything come to fruition, but there is enough there and enough to have it be to have it be the different the different story as it sort of comes to its ending. Obviously this is a very different type of story, and I will say I definitely enjoy what the story means to be, but but it's one of those things where you don't entirely get the story, but you get a good cliffhanger. I'll also say Graham Cole as an actor was kind of wasted just doing the statue in Keeper of Traken here. You really get to see him. He plays Ebko here, and the voice is the Melkur, but as Ebko, he gets to play Ebko really, really well, and him and the Doctor have this amazing sort of witty repartee between them, which is just a lot of fun to listen to and just to watch. You see them, them having just these great interactions that they just hit like one after the other, and it's a great little thing for the story. So, I'm overall going to give part 3 of the Guardians of Prophecy a 10 out of 10. Alright, it is still the 7th of April, 2021. I just finished listening to part 4 of the Guardians of Prophecy. This concluding episode is excellent at finishing things up, but it isn't perfect like some other episodes. It is still definitely good, and I still love a lot of it, but it is definitely a story where I think this one changes a couple of things, makes things just a little bit difficult, and that is kind of a problem for the story. It doesn't entirely give us it doesn't entirely give us what it needs to to really tell that story and give us the big finish that we need. It is a great episode. I love the eventual conclusion. Having the Doctor find his way to complete everything, essentially just by the sheer act of figuring out what's going on here in this essentially crazy story. It's a great little thing for for the plot, where you have the story built up around these as sort of this, as the story can be, can essentially find itself as, as what we've got going on here, is essentially the stuff with Malador being destroyed, and everything essentially coming down to the Doctor and Perry and Ebco saving the day. I like having the Doctor paired with an anti-hero. That's something we'll see a little bit in the bit of the television series we have left, but it's something that we don't see often, and it's interesting. And Graham Cole gives everything at all. I'll also say one of the big problems here is that the resolution to the cliffhanger is a bit weak. That's sort of one of this episode's essential problems. Instead of giving us a perfectly serviceable cliffhanger, resolution, it's just kind of it's take it or leave it, honestly. There are better ways to resolve cliffhangers than the way that it's done here. So, it's still a brilliant and amazing episode. You get the Doctor and Perry's relationship there. You have them go off for more adventures, and you have the idea that Serenity is going to be better than it was when it was founded. Not something that you necessarily expect, but something that you kind of want. It's something you want and something you kind of almost need for a story like this. You need to have the Doctor there and fixing everything. It's not your it's not your typical story, but it is definitely a good ending, and Johnny Byrne and Jonathan Morris are amazing at writing a story like this, where you can see that it's the conclusion coming. So I'm gonna have to give part 4 of the Guardians of Prophecy a 9 out of 10. That being said, we added the scores and averaged them out to give the Guardians of Prophecy a final score of 9.5 out of 10, starting this trilogy of Lost Stories off with a bang. Thank you, everybody, for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. As always, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And join me next time when we take a look at the middle trilogy, the first story chronologically from author Gary Hopkins, who will eventually write for the 8th Doctor range, as well as a little bit of Gallifrey when we cover Gallifrey later on, and the return of Deborah Watling as Victoria Waterfield to Doctor Who in Doctor Who Power Play.